Meghan has been sending gifts, handwritten notes, care packages to one of the most aggressive and sustained anti-royal accounts on social media. And for years she has told anyone who asked that she does not read social media and has no idea what is being said about her online. She has said it in interviews. She has said it through spokespersons. She has said it in context where the question was directly about the online hostility directed at her and her family.
Holy mackerel, King Charles, you've got to get her off that royal website. And I'm not even joking now, because Meghan Markle has now formally endorsed one of the biggest online trolls of Catherine, the Princess of Wales.
Both of those things cannot be true at the same time. The gift and the note are the evidence. Tonight we are going through what the JTB story reveals, who this account is, and what they have actually said about Catherine. What the pattern of 3 separate documented instances tells us about the Sussex relationship with the accounts that do the most aggressive work on their behalf online, and the Harry solo appearance picture that has been accumulating in the same week. By the end, you will see why a handwritten note and a care package from a California zip code says more about Meghan's actual position on online safety than anything she said standing next to the WHO Director General. Now, let's start with what actually happened, because the sequence matters. A social media account known as JTB, one of the most prolific and aggressive pro-Sussex, anti-royal family voices on X, announced publicly that Meghan had sent them a personal gift along with a handwritten note. The announcement was not ambiguous or qualified. The person posted about it directly, described their surprise and gratitude in specific terms, and made clear this was not a misunderstanding or an assistant error. The Duchess of Sussex had identified this specific account, sourced their contact details, prepared a care package, written a note in her own hand, and sent it. Take a moment to sit with what that sequence actually requires. It means someone in the Sussex household, or Meghan herself, had to know who this account was, know how to reach them physically or via a shipping address, prepare an appropriate gift, write a personal note, and send it. None of those steps happen passively or accidentally, and none of them are possible without the account being on someone's radar in a specific, functional, and ongoing way rather than a vague general awareness.
Markle knows exactly what this man is all about. So we now have a ludicrous situation. Look, she's even using the royal cipher. We have a ludicrous situation where a former member of the royal family who claims to be all about online welfare is now backing one of the biggest internet trolls of Catherine, the Princess of Wales. This is unsustainable.
All of them happened while Meghan's consistent and repeatedly stated public position has been that she does not read social media and is not aware of the online conversations happening about her. The Daily Mail, which published on this story, noted that within the past 6 months, JTB had endorsed content attacking the Princess of Wales while also spending over $200 on his ever products. Whether the purchase history is what first connected JTB to Meghan's attention, or whether the relationship runs older and deeper than a recent product order, is not something the public statements from Meghan's team have clarified. What is not in doubt is that the connection is real, deliberate, and now documented in the public record by the recipient's own announcement. What is documented is what JTB has actually said, and it is worth being specific because the general description of the account as negative or hostile does not fully capture the nature of the posts. When Hello magazine described Catherine as stunning royal fans with her walk in heels following her cancer recovery, an appearance that attracted widespread warmth precisely because of what Catherine had been through in the preceding months and what her emergence back into public life represented, JTB responded with a post dismissing the coverage and describing her in language that reduced her to her physical appearance. This was directed at a woman who had publicly disclosed a cancer diagnosis months earlier and was still in treatment.
For years, Meghan has claimed she doesn't read social media and isn't aware of the conversations happening online about her. Yet somehow, she managed to find one of the most hateful anti-royal family accounts on X, send a gift, and include a personal handwritten note. Quite the miracle.
The post attracted considerable attention among royal commentary accounts at the time it was made. When Meghan and Harry's anniversary photographs circulated, JTB posted enthusiastically and at length about the couple's visible chemistry. On the same day, JTB was reposting content that contrasted Catherine's early childhood advocacy work unfavorably with Meghan's WHO speech in Geneva. The framing promoted by the repost asked why the future queen had not addressed the United Nations in any capacity, citing Catherine's visit to children in Italy as evidence of lesser ambition or impact. It is the kind of framing that treats the two women as competitors in a hierarchy of significance rather than as two people doing different jobs in different contexts, and it is consistently directed toward diminishing Catherine relative to Meghan. That is the account that received a handwritten note and a care package from the Duchess of Sussex in 2026, in the same period, in the same year, that she stood at the WHO and described a collective and individual responsibility to choose better online and to model better behavior for the children who, as she put it herself, are watching. If Palace Insider is giving you the full picture that other channels skip on this kind of story, the like button is right there. It costs nothing, and it genuinely helps this channel reach people who want this kind of analysis rather than the sanitized version.
As disgusting as they get. And just a reminder, like, this is one of the posts that the notorious JTB recently endorsed. Look, being a future king and ending up with the uglier, less talented wife must be a gut punch. That was quite soon after Catherine emerged following her cancer battle.
The care package story is significant not because it is isolated, but because it is the third documented instance of the same pattern across multiple years, which means it is no longer possible to explain it as a one-off mistake or a failure of vetting. Years before JTB, Harry and Meghan made a personal phone call to an account known as Henry's Cousin, which had been one of the most aggressive trolling presences in the royal social media ecosystem on Twitter. The behavior of that account was not obscure. It was not something you would only encounter if you spent hours searching through hostile corners of the platform. It was a prominent voice in royal social media spaces, encountered regularly by anyone who spent any time there. Harry and Meghan's team made a personal phone call to that account, not a generic outreach, a personal call. Then, during the Australia visit, Meghan appeared to have close proximity to an account known in commentary circles as Zandy Sussex, someone described by those who follow the royal social media landscape closely as having been particularly sustained and vicious in attacks targeting the Princess of Wales. The connection was documented and circulated at the time. And now the JTB care package. Same pattern, same direction, different name. 3 documented instances across multiple years of the Sussex operation, or Meghan personally, identifying, contacting, and rewarding accounts that have been among the most aggressive in their attacks on Catherine and other members of the royal family.
We need the mainstream media on board exposing what we have been talking about for years in terms of Meghan Markle endorsing the Sussex squad. Why do they keep ignoring the story?
The first instance could be explained as a research failure. Someone on the team who did not properly vet the account before arranging a call. The second could be attributed to poor judgment in the context of a demanding international trip. The third, arriving in the same direction as the first two, cannot be explained as either. A pattern across 3 separate incidents, across multiple years, targeting accounts that have been specifically hostile to the same person, is not a series of mistakes. It is a description of actual behavior. The comparison that makes this story particularly difficult to absorb is the specific juxtaposition with the Geneva speech. And it is worth going back to what she actually said there, because the gap between the words and the care package is very specific. In Geneva, at the World Health Organization in front of global health ministers, Meghan called on adults to be intentional in every moment they like, comment, post, or share online. She said children are watching how we behave. She spoke about the responsibility of public figures to model better behavior on the platforms shaping young people's lives. She said we want our children to be safe. She said let our children look back at this moment and feel proud of us, that we chose something better for them and for ourselves. Those are direct quotations from the speech as delivered. She said those words standing next to the WHO Director General, in front of a room of global health officials who have the mandate and the authority to shape platform policy at the level where it actually changes things. The speech was serious. The venue was real and significant. The cause she was describing is genuine and well evidenced by a large body of research. None of that is in dispute, and it was not in dispute when she said it. Then she sent a handwritten note and a care package to someone who called the Princess of Wales, who had just completed cancer treatment and made her first major public appearances, a bimbo in heels. The WHO speech and the JTB care package are not 2 separate things that sit awkwardly next to each other. They are the same story about the same person's actual position on online behavior, one told for a global health audience and one expressed in private action. The speech described what the global health audience was supposed to believe about Meghan's position on online harm. The care package describes what Meghan actually does when the cameras are not pointed at a WHO podium. Both things now exist in the public record, placed there by other people's choices, and both say something specific about the same woman's actual position. Subscribe to Palace Insider so you never miss what we cover next, and drop your take in the comments. Does the three-incident pattern across multiple years change how you read the Geneva speech? Or do you think each instance can be explained separately on its own terms? Now let's talk about Harry, because what has been accumulating around his public appearances has been quietly generating as much commentary as the JTB story, and the two threads sit in the same week for a reason. In recent weeks, Harry has been seen at two notable events in California without Meghan. The polo, traditionally a family occasion, the kind of event where photographs from comparable royal settings show children attending, picnic baskets, casual warmth. Harry attended the polo without his family and without Meghan. Then the book launch celebration for chef Jose Andres, held at a restaurant in downtown Los Angeles on a Monday evening. Solo again. The Jose Andres connection is the detail that caught the most attention because it reveals something about the social geography of the Sussex household. Andres appeared in Meghan's Netflix cooking show, With Love Meghan. He is part of Meghan's documented professional and social world in a way that predates or exceeds any specific connection to Harry. The project being launched was his cookbook. If anyone in the Sussex household was the natural attendee for that celebration, the logic of the relationship points clearly to Meghan. Harry went. Meghan was not there. The pattern of when the Sussexes appear together publicly and when they do not has become increasingly legible over recent months. The front row NBA seats, the basketball game, the Beyoncé concert, all visible, all photographed, all clearly coordinated rather than spontaneous. You do not end up in the front row of major American sporting events without arrangements being made. These appearances happen together, and they happen on camera. The appearances that are casual and social, the polo, the cookbook launch, the unremarkable evening at a good restaurant in a California town full of good restaurants, do not produce photographs of the two of them together, because those photographs apparently do not exist to be published. Two people who live in the same house have a remarkably limited observable record of ordinary shared social life outside of the coordinated public appearances. Montecito has plenty of restaurants. The observable record of the Sussexes out at dinner together, in the spontaneous, uncoordinated way that couples with a shared social life generate photographs, is approximately zero. None of this constitutes proof of anything specific about the state of the marriage. Demanding schedules and separate social interests are not in themselves evidence of deeper problems. People live full and separate lives within healthy relationships all the time. What the cumulative pattern does is make the biographer's framing, two people being pulled in different directions by different priorities, different geographic pulls, and different ideas of what the future should look like, feel less like speculation and more like an observation that is consistent with what is actually observable in the public record. Bauer's word untenable does not require a single dramatic confirmation. It accumulates through patterns exactly like these: the polo, the cookbook launch, the separately documented social worlds. Now, let's talk about Catherine, because on the same week that the JTB story was circulating and Harry's solo appearances were being noted, she appeared at a Cancer Research UK event alongside King Charles, their first joint public engagement in years, and the contrast it created was impossible to miss. This was the 125th anniversary reception for Cancer Research UK. Catherine wore a red dress covered in small hearts from the American label Rodart, a bold, deliberately emotional choice for an occasion that connected directly to her own recent cancer diagnosis and treatment. The Telegraph described the choice as an outpouring of love in dress form, which is an accurate description of what the combination of the dress, the occasion, and what Catherine has been through over the past year communicated. What made the appearance significant was not the dress or the fashion commentary, it was what the event represented and how she chose to approach it. Catherine, who has spoken openly about her diagnosis and whose recovery has been one of the most closely watched and genuinely moving stories in recent royal history, appeared alongside King Charles, who is himself still receiving treatment, at an event dedicated to cancer research. There was no prepared statement beforehand. no spokesperson briefing, no care package sent to a social media account, an appearance at an event that mattered, conducted with the quiet purposefulness that defines how Catherine approaches her public role. The contrast between that appearance and the JTB story in the same week is one that did not require commentary to draw. It drew itself. The week contained both stories simultaneously in the same news cycle, without anyone having to arrange the comparison. They were both about the same subject: what public figures do with their platforms and their influence, and whether what they say in carefully prepared formal settings corresponds to what they actually do when they are not on a podium. One set of actions and one set of values. The week made both visible at the same time, without anyone having to arrange the comparison. It simply existed in the public record, and anyone paying attention could see it. Let's bring everything back to the central question the JTB story raises, because it goes beyond the specific account and the specific gift and touches something more fundamental about the relationship between public positions and private actions. Meghan has built a significant part of her public identity, particularly in the most recent phase of the Sussex operation, around the harm that hostile social media causes. The WHO speech in Geneva, delivered in front of health ministers with the mandate to shape global platform policy, was the clearest and most formal expression of that position. It was not a casual interview remark or a soft magazine piece. It was a prepared address to an institutional audience about a documented harm, and it was delivered in a setting that lent it genuine authority. The question the JTB pattern raises is not whether she understands what harmful online behavior looks like. The three documented instances, the Henry's cousin phone call, the Zandy Sussex proximity, and now the JTB care package, suggest she understands it very specifically indeed. Specifically enough to identify the accounts doing it on her behalf across multiple platforms in multiple years, to source their contact details or arrange proximity, and to communicate directly that their work is noticed and appreciated. That is not the behavior of someone who does not read social media and is not aware of online conversations about her. That is the behavior of someone who reads it closely, knows exactly who is doing what on her behalf, and has made a deliberate decision, 3 times now, across multiple years, to reward rather than distance herself from the accounts doing it most aggressively. The defense available is that these contacts represent personal choices that should not be held against the broader anti-bullying position, that a public figure is entitled to interact with whoever they choose, and that JTB's most aggressive posts do not represent everything the account does. That defense is available, and some people will find it persuasive. The problem with it is the cumulative pattern, which has now accumulated across enough separate documented instances to be beyond individual explanation. One incident can be explained as a vetting failure. A second can be attributed to poor judgment in a particular context. A third, arriving in the same direction as the first two across multiple years, specifically targeting accounts that have been consistently hostile to the same person, Catherine, is a documented pattern of behavior. Patterns have meaning regardless of the explanations offered for the individual instances within them. The Geneva speech was the public position. The JTB care package is the private action. When private actions and public positions diverge consistently, the private actions are typically the more accurate description of the actual position. And there is a specific person on the receiving end of what those accounts produce, which is a detail worth not losing in the broader analysis. Catherine, who has spent the past 2 years navigating a cancer diagnosis, treatment, the public disclosure of that diagnosis, and then the careful return to public life that recovery requires, is the consistent target of the accounts Meghan has repeatedly chosen to reward. Not a general category of hostile accounts. Specifically and repeatedly, accounts that target Catherine. That is not a general observation about online toxicity. It is a specific observation about a specific woman and the specific person who keeps sending gifts and notes to the accounts targeting her. That is the story the week left behind, not the dress, not the book launch, not the polo. The handwritten note to someone who described the Princess of Wales as a bimbo after her cancer recovery. That is what the week will be remembered for by people who were paying attention. There is a broader observation worth making before we close, because it connects the JTB story to the longer arc of how the Sussex operation has functioned since the departure from royal life. One of the consistent features of the Sussex public strategy has been the combination of a high-minded public position on a serious issue with private actions that are in direct tension with that public position when they become visible. The online safety speech in Geneva followed 18 days later by birthday photographs posted to 5 million followers on the exact platform she was describing as dangerous. The privacy emphasis followed by family details woven into commercial product promotions. The anti-bullying positioning followed by gifts and handwritten notes to accounts conducting sustained campaigns against a woman who had just completed cancer treatment. Each of these tensions, taken alone, can be explained or defended with varying degrees of plausibility. Taken together across multiple years, they describe something more specific. A pattern where the public position serves one function and the private behavior serves another, and where the two are not expected to coexist with scrutiny because the assumption is that the private behavior will remain private. What the JTB story demonstrates is that this assumption keeps being wrong. The recipient announced the gift publicly. Henry's cousin became a story. The Zandy Sussex proximity became a story. Each time the private reward becomes visible, it creates exactly the same problem for exactly the same public position. And each time, the public position is restated rather than the private behavior changed. The speech gets delivered at a serious international venue, the principle gets reaffirmed in a prepared statement to a news outlet, and the next account gets a handwritten note and a care package unannounced to an address that nobody has explained how Meghan obtained. That is the cycle the week made visible again. The gap between the public position and the private behavior, illuminated not by hostile reporting or a biographer with an agenda, but by the recipient's own decision to announce publicly what they had received and who had sent it. What do you make of the JTB pattern? An isolated mistake that happened to be the third of its kind in a row, a calculated endorsement of the accounts doing the dirtiest work, or something in between those two readings? And does the three-incident pattern change how you read the Geneva speech now that you know what was happening around the same time? Drop your honest take in the comments below. Subscribe to Palace Insider so you never miss what we cover next, and the like button keeps this channel doing exactly this kind of analysis. Until the next one.